everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today I got for you another In the Garage episode. I've been hearing a lot of people been asking for more videos on crafting and creating things, you know, from scratch, and you know, just using like how people get like such good ideas going and make them like work so well in building. A lot of people find it really complicated to get a craft going from scratch. So that's what the topic on this In the Garage video is going to be today. Making a car from scratch. Now, of course, you all know I'm a avid Lunatic player, so it's obviously going to be on making a Lunatic build. And by the end of this video, it will not be a ridiculously powerful build by any means, but it will be a good base for you to grow the build itself afterwards. That's why I didn't clip these excuse me. That's why I didn't clip these videos this time around to shorten the video altogether, because when I was in the editing process, I really did feel like you need to see the whole process or else you won't be able to get it. It's not a quick process. Unless you're extremely talented or know exactly what you're trying to do, it's not going to be quick. We all know this, all of us who've played and sat in the garage and tried to create ideas. You sometimes spend like hours in the garage. So I ended up leaving all the videos at full length because, I mean, there's no shortcuts to this kind of process. So we're gonna go with something traditional. I'm gonna try and keep it low power score. So if you guys want to like try and mimic it and, you know, see if you can't make a better variation, it'll be pretty cheap for you guys to grab the pieces on this. You know, I got the, what is this? The bat? Yeah, the bat. The teal Lunatic cabin, you know, not too high, not too low. And I'm planning on putting shivs on this, but they're kind of heavy and my weight's gonna be limited with this light cab, as all Lunatic builds are. So we'll see. So one of the things that you guys should really pay attention to is starting with the cab on a blank frame, and then just molding the shape of your car that you're envisioning with the frame, the size of the frame. You know, that starts with putting the cabin on the frame and just building the shape of the frame right there and going as big as you figured you would. Just to remember that this process and building, when you're really good at it, you'll realize that it isn't gonna be perfect off the bat. You're gonna go back and revise things over and over again. Different parts that you put on at the beginning, some parts you just put on a second ago. Like, you'll go back a lot and revise things. So it's okay to make it sloppy. It's okay to make it like kind of wonky, because that'll just, once you have the full build itself down, you can go back and smooth all that out. So it's really about getting the shape and the idea of the car. And when I say idea, I mean the modules that go along with the guns, the shape of the vehicle that works for the guns, you know, in case they need more or less protection and all that good jazz. So you really can't skip on this process. You just start with something sloppy and you'll turn it into something greater. Like, once you hit your limit in parts, pretty much, as my rule of thumb, and you're sitting there and you're like, this is all right, I could run with this. Like, that's the point when you make it even better, because you got the model there and you just need to remold it. So I'm gonna make this build with triple maces, just because they're also teal weapons, pretty easy for you guys to grab. I'm gonna use the what is it, the Breeze and the Timir, or however you say that. And we'll start with some Hermits, just because they hold more weight with fewer wheels. So I mean, this is just a rough draft, you guys. As I go along, I'm going to have to go back and revise certain parts, and you know, the vision changes. You guys wanted me to make something from scratch so that I could show you how to make it from scratch, and I didn't really have an idea, because I pretty much have builds for all my equipment right now. So I just decided to remake, you know, a typical Lunatic shotgunner car, just with a different fashion of parts. And I'm really just doing this from off the top of my head as I go. And that's why if you notice that I kind of fidget around and sit there for a second, it's because I'm taking a moment to figure out what piece will fit or what will get the job done. So don't mind that. I do advise you guys to go ahead and watch the full length video. If you really want help on building, please watch the whole video, because it looks sloppy at times, but it gets better. It gets much better. So, and also, I will be releasing a video on armor optimization with the subject of this car, being that because I did end up making this for you guys as a building project to show you how to build. So in light of that, I'm going to make an armor optimization video to show you guys how to, you know, get your the full potential of your armor out of a build, even when it's already sloppily made. But you know, with traditional shotgunner cars and Lunatics faction, they usually run a wedge. As annoying that I know it is, and trust me, I feel the same way. It's a meta, and it's one of those that it really does just work. Almost any kind of wedge will make a huge difference in a shotgunner car. So, and it's unavoidable at that point to not make a shotgunner with a wedge. I've seen shotguns without it, but they don't work quite as well. And you know, your basic wedge is pretty easy to make. All you got to do is flip some train plows to the right angle that you feel comfortable with, and bam. I mean, if you don't have two of them, you can always substitute with the small plow. But you know, I got both of the train plows, so we'll just go with that. Even though it's crazy, I'm using those huge pieces on the Lunatic build. We'll probably revise that later. And as you can see, I'm just shaping and molding the frame. I made a hole in the bottom to sit my modules, because on Lunatic builds you tend to not have space to put them around the inside. So the underneath is pretty much your best bet for fitting on modules and extra stuff like Jennies and stuff like that, and protecting them, because your builds tend to be light on armor. And yeah, spacing your wheels also, if you notice, is very important also. It determines your turn ratio and all that for your vehicles. Wheels put on at the right ratio, they can zero turn almost like tracks. So it's very important that you get your wheel spacing down and your wheel types. Steerings, I advise you using the front and the back, and use the straights as like kind of like a center, a spinning spindle in the middle, because your wheels in the front and the back will guide the direction, and the ones in the middle don't turn, so they'll just stay centerfold, and the ones in the front and back will just spin the center ones around in a complete circle. Makes for a much tighter turn. It also makes the steering a little bit more sensitive, so watch out for that. It's debatable. I'm sure there's other people with better wheel schemes than that, or different ones that work differently or just as good. But if you notice, I went back and I deleted one of those gun mounts for my maces, because they were just making our weapon mounting too wide on the inside. It was taking up a lot of space. So I slimmed it down. It's another one of those revisions I was saying about, you know, you'll go back and fix on these things again. I promise you, you will. There's no way to avoid it. So what stage am I at? I'm trying to just armor up the car. Did I cap my energy yet? Yes, I did. I capped the energy of the cab. We're just gonna run with that for now. I'm not gonna add a Jenny at this point, because I'm still trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with this thing. I'm legitimately making it up as I go. So I don't have any real plan for this build. And one important thing about adding armor to a vehicle is making sure that you don't sloppily add heavier pieces to your car that in the end will make it impossible for you to get the full value of armor, because too many fewer pieces have all the weight tied onto them. You'll see that I'm doing that right now, but that's just because I'm trying to get a general feel for the car and mold it, because I know I'm going to go back later and revise that armor again. So we're just getting a feel for the mold. I'm looking at this rear end and I am not happy and not too excited to figure out what I'm going to do with that. Because, I don't know, the rear end is one of the more tougher parts for you to figure out, I feel like. As well as the front. You know, the sides are basically just armor and a makeup of wheels, sometimes in a defensive fashion. So, I mean, as far as that goes, the front and the back is usually a kicker for me. And by the way, if you do enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe, and maybe even click that little bell down next to the both of them, and you'll be able to catch all my content as it comes out. And you know, I love making these videos for you guys. That's why I even started doing this in the first place. So it'd be great. I'd be grateful if you guys would go ahead and just subscribe to me and just catch all my videos as they come out. Let's see. I'm really thinking about this back end. I gotta patch it up before I use too much weight and pieces. I just don't know how I'm gonna do that. I'll find a way. Bumper for starters. That's an easy choice. Helps defend in case you get slammed in the back by a harvester or anything. It'll hopefully prevent you from just getting plain erased on contact because of the physical resistance of the bumper. Now, if they got this stuff on the top, it's just not. You're done. But yeah, no, that one's not gonna work. Yeah, it's a rule of thumb. I try to put melees on my front and back end, so if I end up getting wrecked into from behind while I'm sitting still, or I end up wrecking into someone, I don't get damage, and hopefully I do damage. So just protection, man. Thinking about expanding this frame because I just don't think I have enough space. So I'm gonna go back and revise this frame again for what, the second time, and expand it to make the build itself a little bit fatter. Frame play also helps with when it comes to your weight distribution. Sometimes you can sacrifice bigger frames in areas that don't usually take much damage so that you can put smaller ones there and get some of the weight back. But I'll cover all those kinds of things in my armor optimization video. I think I'm gonna call it armor optimizing. That sounds like a much shorter, much cleaner name. Optimization is too long of a word. I don't want it. We're gonna go with optimizing. Optimizing. I'll figure it out. But it's not gonna be optimization. That's just too much. Made more of a gap right here. Since I changed my frame scheme up to make it wider, that also made room for different scenarios where I put my modules down underneath my build. So, just playing around with the ideas and the schemes, man. You will start with something and you will end with something completely different as long as you keep working at it. You just keep doing what you think is right. The main part is starting with the cabin, putting it on the frame, molding that frame to suit the size of the vehicle. I would advise then putting your guns on right afterwards, set up your mounting system for your guns, like using gun mounts or the buggy floors or any kind of damage resistant parts, which I would also advise using, because armor has no resistance. It takes full damage and it comes off like butter most of the time, which is also one of the reasons why it's not too important, like the thickness and all that and the health of your armor pieces, because ultimately they all fall off pretty easily. So I would definitely advise, if you notice, I got the gun mount and the two buggy floors or whatever those are called, sitting there holding up my guns. Even though the ones on the sides are halfway sticking out, they're still touching that buggy frame and welded to it. So even if I lose that buttery armor, I'm still gonna have the buggy frame on the inside to hold it on that other block of welding. So never use armor when you're mounting weapons. Always use buggy parts or some kind of ram or something that's damage resistant, or the best thing is the cabin. It doesn't disappear until you die. After that, I would go with either buggy pieces or just straight on the frame, because they're both resistant to damage and they're pretty good selective pieces of choice to use for that kind of thing. And after that, I would look for armor pieces hidden up in your selection that have damage resistance. They are there. There's some pieces that have bullet resistance, I think explosion resistance and things of that nature. So there are armor pieces that give you health and also resist damage. So, but like I said, as a rule of thumb, never mount. I cannot stress this enough. I see a lot of you guys doing it. Never mount your guns on armor. Only the lucky ones keep their guns by the end of the match, and that's usually because they don't get that much attention during the fight. I wouldn't count my chips on that. So I'm gonna make this wedge a little bit more aggressive. These pieces right here, the Nomad's blades, wing blades, whatever they're called, these are pretty good for mounting the wedges because they're short and they're rounded, so they're really good for slipping up under the edge of a build. Even tracks and stuff, they might be able to dig that crack under the track and lift it up off the ground. They're pretty good for wedge stuff. And they added another set of doubles, which there was only 2 at first, and they updated and dropped another 2 for a total of 4. So they're really good for using on the frame because the single ones already count at 4. So that's a total of 8 blades. Makes it really maneuverable to set up those pinch points for your wedge to get up under someone. I'm just gonna beef up the frame a little bit here, add some more fullness to the build. I'm still not entirely sure what I'm going to do with this build or what I want it to look like when I'm done. So I'm just making minor adjustments that I feel like will improve it until I end up with something that will work. And that's what most of the building process is, especially when you're doing it off the top of your head like me, like I'm doing right now. You're not gonna have a real set plan. Just gotta get in there and try stuff out. Right now I'm using the hot red engine because I don't want to use that extra point of energy that all the other ones require. But I'm already thinking that I'm going to have to switch it to an engine that takes energy in order to get the best out of my weight, because the hot red is not great for weight. And this build is already decently fast with the cabin stats, so it could stand to use a heavier engine with less of a speed bonus. This gap right here, you guys are just gonna have to work that out on your own, to be honest, because those odd sized gaps, depending on what you have in your selection, you may or may not be able to fill it in the first place. So you might want to chalk that up to, I guess, spaced armor or something. But these 3x3 spaces are really difficult. There's really only the van window that'll fit in there and really get that space filled. So that's what I'm gonna go with for now, even though it's not the best piece of armor. It's the only one that'll fit. Just examining it, thinking about what I can do to improve the armor situation. So I've already got the internals down and all that, since that's what I started with. So that makes building a little bit faster when you know that you got everything that's important already in the build. Then you no longer have to worry about making space for internals like modules and stuff or jennies. You already got it on there, so all you have to do is just get all the armor on it and you're done. So that's literally what the rest of this is going to be, probably, is just armor, maybe swap out a few modules and improve the stats of the build itself. But right now I'm mainly just molding the car. I gotta be real careful about my selection. I'm already over in weight. I might have to do a tiny bit of optimizing in order to get this to fit all together, because my back end is still lacking. So this is a small amount of armor optimization I'm going to pull off here in order to fix this weight issue. Out all these pieces for lighter size pieces. Put me back in the green or the white, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna have to get rid of those large Founders armor pieces. They just soak up too much armor. They're not very optimized for being good on weight. So I'm just gonna have to get rid of them. I know it. I just don't know what I'm gonna replace it. Don't know what I'm gonna replace it with. I'm having a hard time figuring out what I'm gonna do in order to get this moving back into the white with a back end at the end. No pun intended. So we'll just go ahead and replace it with a straight Lunatic level item. That'll give me a lot of that weight back that I just spent on those two pieces. I accidentally propped that one up too high. I thought it looked weird. Now to fill in that gap that those by 6s left, because these are only by 4s, so extra 2 blocks of space left over after that little swap. But I'm already 500 pounds back down from doing that, so I got a little bit of play room back. It's not too bad of an idea to stick your armor off the back end of your frame, only because, you know, impacts and cannon shots and stuff, you'll actually do better for it frame wise if your frame isn't all the way extended to the very back of your car all the time. It's still good to do, but you don't have to, because it's still good not to. Best way I can explain it. Starting to form a back end here finally. Took me like what, 3 times, maybe 4 times of looking at the back end before I finally figured out something to do with it. But you know, here we are. Procrastinated on it as long as I could, but it's my main issue at this point. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Symmetry on that is terrible, and I'm kind of OCD about the symmetry of my cars, making each side look good, well-rounded, and also having like something that makes sense. Like having little dips and edges along like a wall of your vehicle just irritates me, because it feels like it's more fake that way. I just don't like it. It's my personal opinion. Whoops. Let's see. It's still sticking inside by a block, so we're gonna try this. I'm gonna put 2x4 and turn it sideways, so it pushes out 2 instead of 1 like that wall did. And that can basically count as a bit of spaced armor. I'm not really good at making spaced armor, so don't quote me on that, but I mean, there's an empty gap right there, and there's a decently heavy piece of armor holding it with space behind that armor in order for, you know, damage to fall off. So you can use that as a bit of spaced armor, and I'm gonna fix it up a bit here, and I went right back under and wait. Man, this is why I think a lot of you give up on building, is because you get to this point like where I'm at right now, which is why I wanted you guys to watch the whole video, because you will see that I run into the same problems that you guys run into, but I just have a better method, or a method, for dealing with it, so I don't just trash the build and either restart or just move on back to the old build. You got to be able to roll with the punches, guys. Something goes in the red, you fix it, you don't leave it. Now, how to fix it is the hard part, but that's why I'm making this video for you guys. Also, another thing I left out about the frame, try to connect it to both the cabin and like all the way around, kind of like in a circle. If you notice, the very front and the very back of my frame are touching all the way across. It's, you know, in the case that like the frame gets chopped up and a piece of it that's connected to the cabin's missing. Well, if you have it connected all the way around, like in a circle, then it'll still be connected to the cabin from the opposite side of the frame that is still there. So just the rule of thumb for me, I try to encircle the frame around the front and around the back to make sure that there's extra contact for when my build falls apart, that the other side can help the broken side stay together. Get rid of those wings, get a piece back, part slot back, or whatever you call it, and also drop something cheaper on weight. It's a little bit of optimizing for you guys. So I managed to go overweight twice and come back out of that overweightness twice. So armor optimization is a key role in building, which is why I'm going to make my next video on just that right after this one. But to be honest, I'm fairly tired of being overweight and having my options so limited, so I'm going to switch to another engine here in a minute. If I can't get a, see, look, I'm overweight again. Yeah, there's not much breathing room, but I'll just work with it for now. Just work with it. Sometimes I like to stop and slap a coat of paint on it to see what it looked like if it was painted. Now, you do realize that I have black in my name, so don't be surprised to see that I have like almost every shade of black in the game. It's just a habit and a hobby. That burnished steel was alright. And that dark chrome was a little bit better. This honeycomb is a no-go. It's way too bright. Breath of Darkness. I don't even know what the decals inside this paint are. Still can't tell. But I think I'll pass on that one this time. Dynamic Armor. I love that one, but I feel like it only suits a certain build. Shadow of Success. It's one of my favorites. It's got that glossy look to it. I think that's probably going to be my go-to. Half-Light's kind of eh. And Carbon is a classic. Oh, rims. I almost forgot. Gotta definitely slap some rims on there for a little bit of style. That don't cost any parts, slots, or anything. Like, just add onto your wheels and make them look cooler. There we go. Scandinavian style or whatever this is. I'm pretty sure it's either Viking or Scandinavian. This build is alright. See how it performs. Like I said, it's just a rough draft build just to get the model down so that you have something that will work. You just gotta go from there. It's like making the rough draft. Now you gotta put all the elements to the rough draft in order to turn it into something beautiful. But as you can see, the wedge is working as intended. And the guns can shoot fairly well. Although with these guys, the guns are super low, or their cabin's super low on the ground, so it can be difficult for you to hit raiders, basically. I like to call them raiders. They look like raiders. Easy mode raiders. Raiders aren't always the best test when you're running a low build like this that's got cover for your weapons. It is what it is. But it definitely wedges, and the shotguns work as intended. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Now I will make a video next coming up that will be an improvement on the same build. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe and maybe the bell so that you can catch the next one. Until then, see you.